sometimes pragmatist philosophers, have been criticized because of anti-realism or views that are difficult to reconcile with realism. And if you read some standard criticisms of pragmatism, then you easily find that kind of claims that pragmatism is anti-realistic or cannot be realistic. However, I think it's one of the key ideas in pragmatism, at least if you start from classical pragmatism, Charles Peirce, William James, also John Dewey and others. I think one of the key ideas there is that pragmatism seeks to offer a kind of a middle ground position between rival extremes that are that go in a way too far in opposite directions, and that also I think applies to the realism issue. So the pragmatist could be something in between realism and anti-realism, or at least something in between radical metaphysical realism, according to which the world is just somehow absolutely mind independent and language independent, and mind independently the way it is, consisting of a definite totality of mind independent objects and so forth. So the pragmatist would be offering something between that view on the one hand and on the other hand anti-realism, according to which we simply somehow construct or create the world on the basis of language or human conceptualization. So of course all of these discussions would have to be made much more precise, and there are countless different versions of realism and of course also many different versions of pragmatism. So it's very, very difficult to give a quick and easy answer to the question of how to be a realist if you're a pragmatist. You always have to make it much more specific and try to characterize your favorite version of pragmatic realism in relation to some more detailed issues. Then of course also you have to take into account that you can be a realist or anti-realist in different fields of philosophy. I mean, you can of course ask this question in a way globally about the world in general, but also in many cases, and it may also be more interesting to study the somewhat more specific realism issues or realism debates in, for instance, philosophy of science or ethics or philosophy of religion. So if we talk about the philosophy of religion here in particular, then as you know, the realism discussion is about whether religious language refers to a mind and language independent reality, whether religious statements can be mind independently true or false, and so forth, whether there is a determinate reality out there with religious entities such as God possibly existing mind independently or not, and so on. So I think there the pragmatic middle ground would be a position somewhere in between the strong realism, according to which there simply is such a mind and language independent fact of the matter regarding the existence of religious reality and regarding truth about such a reality on the one hand, and the other extreme, the kind of constructivist picture according to which religious language or language use simply somehow creates its own object, and there is nothing out there independently of that language use. So the pragmatist or the pragmatic realist somehow recognizes that there is a non-human constraint to what we can say about reality, and that constraint needs to be taken into account when we're interested in truth and in whether our language use refers to the world and so on. But that doesn't mean that the world would simply be determinately there. It's up to us to categorize it in terms of our concepts, and for a pragmatist, conceptual categorization has a kind of a practical basis. It's related to human practices that serves certain human purposes and so forth. So that gives you a kind of a first impression of how I would start to respond to that kind of a question.